Hey all. All right, it is the first week of February, the end of the first week of February, and you guys just missed Tim and I trading married life anecdotes and having children, and every we've had the continued plague. The good thing is for the office, East and West Coast, it's been a lot better than before. However, I finally succumbed. On Saturday, I was trying to get some work done. I had cleared the whole day. I was just going to do some work on Saturday, and about by the afternoon, I was on the floor, and then later on in the evening, it got terrible, and it really sucks. I don't know where I'm going with this, and I'm just
But
going to share.
that's not the reason
details.
Mark's not doing the wrap up.
Oh yeah. The reason Mark's not doing the wrap up. Yeah. I wanted to get Mark out of here.
Everybody's like, who the hell are these people?
Mark's son was in town, and I said, let's get you out of the office as quick as possible so you can go spend some family time. And for once, he listens, so he must think we know what we're doing. All right, so we've had a few. The end of the plague, I think, is wrapping up. I was going to say that I'd avoided everything here in the office until the last minute. I think nature sent an infiltrator through my child to get me. So we just finished up wrapping up the top 10. We're continuing working on, we've got a whole bunch of things, no big system testing, but a lot of varied systems testing that we wanted to try and do this weekend. Right now, Rob is currently working through some building bugs related stuff. We're, as we've said, we're putting things all back together. So buildings, we've got a lot of changes that happened over the last few weeks that are kind of low-lying ability system stuff that we just kind of wanted to get a few more eyes on. We've got the 32K map in there, and that required a few subtle changes, but as we've learned in development, subtle changes sometimes give us the biggest bugs.
Hang on 1 second. Some people are saying that they're not seeing the stream.
Did they refresh their...
They said refresh isn't working.
Are they hearing us?
You broke it.
Is it just a vision thing?
Can you hear us, folks?
I said so many things, I don't want to say them all again.
No.
That's what you get for not asking if they could hear you.
I guess that's true. Or see us in this case.
Let's see if I can get it.
This is rather odd.
I assume we had some people say they could see us.
Let's, yeah, we're going to have to restart the stream here, folks, so be right back.
This is delicious. And the third time I was like, there's honey in it.
Yeah,
I think it's just a survival mechanism in children to not want to try new things.
yeah, and that's our thing with Miranda is always like, all right, you have to try a bite. Like she's gone through this phase where like she used to love like peas and carrots. We just had like big bags of frozen peas and carrots that we could just throw in, warm them up, and eat them. And I think she's decided she doesn't like peas now, which I did that at about her same age.
What's wrong?
It's not working. I might have to ask for some help from JB.
Go get him.
Log back in since we changed the password. May have reset the.
Well, I mean, it's logged in and it claims to be trying to connect right now.
It's just connecting on both.
But the YouTube's actually working. Here, double check the.
Are we live on YouTube? Gonna make faces at them?
The mic
The
is
mic
on.
is on. Great.
Hey all, I see the light come on the camera. We got to give you the snaps. I'm just going to restart everything. Let's just do a can you see me, can you hear me? Max is giving me the head nod. Yep, you should ask that right off the bat.
Sound and visual is good.
Okay, on YouTube and Twitch, I assume?
Well, at least on Twitch.
Well, that's why I'm asking.
But YouTube people, tell us if the sound is good. Okay, yes,
Okay.
Both working.
All right, let's start over. I might as well introduce myself because you never know who's jumping into these at any point. My name's Tyler Rockwell. I'm a producer and artist on Camelot Unchained. This is...
I'm Tim Mills, engineering manager with City State Entertainment, working on Camelot Unchained.
And we pushed Mark out the door as early as possible because the man works really, really hard. And his son was in town. I said, get out of here, go play with family. Currently, right now, we're going to read through the top 10 for the week. It's been a very, actually, sometimes I start writing these things and I'm like, oh, there's not enough. And then by the time I'm done, there's way more than I expected as I check.
13?
Yeah, the top 10-ish as I check through everything. And, you know, I say this often, and I'm not saying it lightly. We have a very hardworking team. So sometimes where I'm not always aware of some of the little intricacies as I dig into things at the end of the week and I figure out what's done, all of a sudden I've written a paragraph for one item that I wasn't really expecting to do. Currently we're trying to get a little bit of testing up this weekend. Whether or not we do that is dependent upon how many asserts we have, general stability. As we said earlier, over the last couple of weeks, actually, we've got a lot of work in progress, bigger ticket items. This is a smaller test as we merge in a lot of updates to the building code in general, the plot mechanics, the plot UI. It's something Rob's been working on for the last 2 weeks. And we've got a whole bunch of low-level ability changes that happened over the last few weeks. And we haven't really had a lot of testing on it. Partly we've been trying to kind of get all the animation system updates in as well, start working on the player feedback side of things, and assume we do a little bit more testing at that point. The animation refactor is going great. It's amazing. Late last night, Rob was kind of saying like, oh my God, you should see how great it is. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you should watch the stream. And unfortunately for me, that's like watching something in Japanese. But already it's great, and there's a whole litany of things that this will, the point of this is it also allows us to do a lot of things that we could not do with the previous system. So we'll see where that goes. I don't think we're going to have an answer by the end of the stream, but we'll definitely have information in an email if it happens and for whoever is applicable. Right now we're just looking at an IT alpha test dependent upon what happens over the next couple of hours. So let's move into the top 10 for the week, and I'm going to shoot to Tim because he's going to hit some of the techie side things off the start, and I will hit some of the arty things at the end. We're going to do a short Q&A towards the end. It's going to be short. We need to kind of get back to seeing if we can push this test out and finish up the update for the week. Please keep any questions about the at the end for more of the tech ability-based art kind of questions. This isn't it's not Ben or Mark sitting here talking design.
We can't tell you which class is going to be OP or which skills are the best or how long stealth is going to last, any of that stuff. Like, ask us art and tech questions.
Okay, why don't you start off?
All right, so the big thing that we've been talking about a lot is the animation work. Anybody that's been watching the streams, animation streams, that's coming along great. Last week we sort of landed the meat and potatoes of it, and now we're incrementally adding to it so that we've got what we're working on this week is getting the abilities to play, or abilities to play the correct animation based on the type of the attack. So if you're doing a slashing attack or a piercing attack or a crushing attack, if it's a high, medium, or low attack, it's going to play all the right animations for that. The other thing is getting it synced up. So like when Scott makes an animation, it's just so many frames long, and depending on the frame rate or whatever, that's so many seconds long. and your abilities will play back at a different rate based on, if you've got an attack speed buff or, the components that you've used to craft this ability. And so the other part we're doing is syncing it up so that your animation plays for the proper duration of the attack. He's also working on making sure that the correct animation plays based on the weapon equipped. So, if you've got a spear, we do a spear thrust as opposed to a rapier kind of thrust, that sort of thing. I've heard rumorings about also syncing it up so that the weapon makes contact with your player at the same exact time as the server does the damage and that sort of thing. So all really, really cool stuff to finally start making combat feel really visceral. We went through this whole thing with rehabilitation for those of you that have been following us for a while, and have a really powerful ability system, and now the animations are catching back up to that, and it's starting to feel really, really good.
And one of the things I want to make sure that we keep iterating, we're just putting everything back in together. There's going to be bugs, there's going to be issues. I was just saying to Scott, we got to look at the way we've rigged some of the meshes for the characters, because the pull invert's funny of just animations we hadn't seen in the game yet. So it's going to be a process as we put it all back together and start making edits around it. Are you clicking buttons, Max?
Yeah, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, I saw the light go off for a second.
I was resetting the camera because the focus
Oh, okay.
wasn't in a good place.
Go ahead.
So the next,
This is the big one.
yeah, the next big one is the item improvements. So Christina, who is our newest hire, she's been doing gameplay and item related stuff for us, starting with just sort of improvements on the item system as a whole, which will eventually segue into crafting. So last week and this coming week, she's getting it set up so that right now when you spawn into the game, if you're a female Valkyrie, we give you armor for the female Valkyrie. And
Art assets.
Art assets, right. And if you drop that armor on the ground and the Lucherpan comes around and picks it up, he will have art assets for a female Valkyrie. The interesting flip side of that is if a Lucherpan drops his helmet on the ground and basically anybody else comes and picks it up, the Lucherpans have giant noggins, and so you have these big head helmets on them. And so what she's working on doing is making it so that if you drop a helmet on the ground and you equip it on a Lucherpan, it looks good on a Lucherpan. And if you drop it on the ground and you equip it on a Valkyrie, it looks good on a Valkyrie or a Giant or a Diverger or whatever.
And this is the system support. The design decisions around this are still a work in progress, and that's, if you guys are going to ask me any questions about that, that's
Right.
more of a Ben and Mark
Yeah.
question.
Though it does impact that in a couple of ways. Part of what she's also done is streamlined the way we get items into the game. There were like 4 different ways in which items got into the game, and so it was really difficult to know exactly what a player was going to start with when he logged into the game, and where the stats were coming from and where you needed to go to fiddle with them. And so we've made Ben's life easier.
And in some regards, the artist's life easier.
And so
Ben will be able. Basically, Ben has a sheet that he's been working on for a large portion of this week that we've kind of called the sheet of all the things. And he'll also be able to set up just items that you start with, literally equipped versus also what's in your bag, which I don't think we had the capability to edit that before.
Yeah, no, but before it was something I hard coded in.
Yeah.
That was like, you're a heavy armor wearing dude, and you've got heavy armor in your inventory. Let's put it on.
Yeah.
So outside of that, I'm not sure if we touched on that last week or not. I thought I saw a mention of it, but we've added some more gear slots.
We talked about it. It was she was just starting in on
Right.
Friday.
So what it used to be is you had one slot for like your head, for your entire helmet, and now you have a slot for your face mask, like a slot for your skull, and a slot for your neck. And so we could give you like a really fancy helmet that covered all 3 of those slots, or we could make each of those an individual piece of gear. And so we've got that in place. We can define stats for each of those. And Ben can actually go in and create new gear slots if he wants to, so that doesn't require a programmer's intervention. If we, decide we want to add ring slots or elbow spikes or anything crazy like that, that's all will be under Ben's domain, which is great from a design perspective and iteration perspective.
The other thing it adds in is the underlayer. We weren't planning on supporting this, but part of this whole improvement pass that Christina's done, which will segue into crafting, we went ahead and hit that as well, which will allow you to put shirt on independent of your chest piece.
So you can have like a padded shirt that goes on under armor, and then
Yeah.
and then again, Ben has control over all these. So if you wanted to, you could put a poncho layer over top of that, or anything like that.
Yeah. Right now we only have a few art assets for shirts. One of the things I've kind of queued up of a nice to have is just to make some other quick materials. It should be relatively easy. So we can set up a few chain shirts, padded shirts, leather shirts, and then Ben can work on adding those stats in, and then players will be able to mix and match all different kinds of pieces. And this is a very fun system from a gamer perspective. Like we're all excited about all these little things, but it's also very difficult. So, and I'm a bit of a glutton for punishment on some of these things. I get really excited about this stuff. So literally just when there was a twang of fear and anxiety when Tim was doing this, because I know that there's all this work that has to go in to make sure that certain helmets and geometry fits for masks and the guy's head and where his hair is, and we're not wasting polys, and you don't see through the guy's head. There's a whole lot of work just in this tiny little area that was just summarized by Tim in one line, but it's very exciting.
Also, I don't see it on my list, but one of the other things that may not be interesting to you guys, but originally, your
may not be interesting to you, but I'm going to tell
tell you about it anyways because it's cool. Your armor was 1-to-1 to a model, so you had a model for your right-handed glove and a model for your left-handed glove, and you had to have a different item for each of those, which also potentially from a gameplay system would mean you would have like people who specialized in crafting left gloves and people who specialized in crafting right gloves. And in general, we didn't like that. So we, as part of all this gear slot refactor, also made it so that you can have one item that can potentially be equipped to multiple slots and have different models based on which slot you equip it to. So you make a glove, and if you put it on your left hand, it looks like a left-handed glove, and if you put it on your right hand, it looks like a right-handed glove. There's some potential other stuff that I don't want to talk about too much because just
because you're not sure.
Yeah, it's related to design stuff, but I'm not sure the direction we decided to take with that. But there could be potentially some really cool stuff we do there.
I'm going to tell you the things that you may not be interested in, and not tell you the things that are really cool that you may be interested in.
Yeah. Deal with it.
Go for it, Patcher.
Combining patchers. So
Combining patchers.
Combining, yeah. Some of you guys have had issues with our patcher in the past, and Dave on the forums or in chat or whatever may have gotten you on what we call the experimental patcher. And that's sort of been in the works for several months, like 6 months or more, I think. And we've
kind of been queuing problems as they come up, putting people on it, testing it, trying things out, adding another person.
And we've got a ton of vetting through that, and we're sort of reintegrating the experimental patcher with the mainline patcher, and that's super duper close to landing so that we can just roll out the patcher and everybody can play the game. Now, if you're still having issues, obviously reach out to us. We are a game in development. This is not solving every patcher problem in existence, but there were a bunch of people that had issues with the default patcher that solved those issues with the experimental patcher. So we're excited to get that landed and unified, both from a maintenance perspective and also there were some features that were difficult to deploy to the guys on the experimental patcher. Terrain editor improvements. So we mentioned that we had been working with moving our map up from a 16-kilometer map to a 32-kilometer map. Some of the hurdles with doing that were the map was massive, not just from a player perspective, but from a developer perspective. And for Tyler and Ben to sort of like navigate the map and see how it looked in our editor could take a long time. Also, it occasionally crashes, and so the longer you spend running from point A to point B, the more opportunity there is for things to crash.
And you get lost.
Yeah. The map is just so big, and the biomes, some of them are super deep and dark, intentionally, that sometimes it's just tough to tell where you are. So Bull's been putting in a bunch of features for like teleporting around in the editor, and then also extracting where you are in the editor so you can put it in the game client and you can run around in the game client. And he said he's now working on getting that to go the other way so you can run around in game and like, oh, well, I don't like this thing, let's pull up this position in the editor so I can warp there and fiddle with it. So that's all really cool stuff for getting you guys big, immersive maps that are easy for us to edit. Bots using abilities. So Mark finished doing some changes from OpenSSL.
He is currently finishing.
Yes.
Finishing up. Yeah, not finished.
Okay. I thought we already had that in, but Mark is finishing up the change from OpenSSL to LibreSSL, which gives us some cool security improvements for you guys. Makes it harder for you to get hacked. Makes it harder for you to hack us. Additionally, he's been working on getting the bots updated to use the abilities. Basically, since we did rehabilitation, the information that bots have access to for abilities has changed enough that ever since we landed rehabilitation, bots just haven't been able to use abilities, which means we've been able to do these big scale tests, but we haven't been able to do a big scale test of the ability system. And so we're working on getting that in. That will do some really, really cool chaos once it goes in. It'll give us some really, really cool feedback of where our pain points are, both for like rendering the client, for doing the networking for the client, how the server stability does, how the server scalability does. All good stuff for both us and you.
And it'll let us do some sparklies for George's performance updates to the particle system, which is coming up soon. I just like the idea of just shit going off everywhere. We've been talking about putting in updating a map like the autumn biome with a bunch of VFX. It's a review that's waiting to get finished, and put a lot of VFX, a bunch of bots just firing VFX off and see what happens.
But before we did the rehab stuff, we had videos of really cool like night scenes where there's fireballs flying through the sky and explosions of like healing waves and stuff like that, and it looks really, really cool. And our graphics engine has come forward since then so far and has so much cool stuff that's available to it. And our ability system has come so far forward, and getting these last little bits and being able to show all of that off in a really cool, really epic battle is super exciting.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things. I appreciate your patience. We're being patient here too. It's this putting everything back together with all the new and better stuff and just getting all the systems to work together that we're just going through.
So we come to the art part of this, and I'm going to give it back to Tyler.
All right, so one of the things we've been doing while we've been working on new art, using the time, we had actually finished a lot of the art that we wanted to do when it came to the characters a while ago, and then started working on improvements that we had originally planned for beta. Things like getting undershirts separate, that's extra. We hadn't planned on doing all of our own CSE built weapons. We created a crap load of weapons.
Light armor was additional too, wasn't it?
Yeah, light armor was not originally planned. We did an outfit. I don't want to call them sets because they're not really meant to be sets. An outfit for each of the realms. So they had a light armor piece. And one of the things we've had a little bit of time to do is just not only learn how to do things better, either in testing where we've learned things or just try and figure out things on our own. So a couple of things that we're hitting right now. We never really were happy with the hands. And that's a really touchy area. People always look at touchy. No, I said touchy again. People are always in the, you see heads and hands on people a lot. That's people, it's one of those things where if it's wrong, you don't necessarily know why it's right. So artists literally get paid to tell you why a hand is not right. So we spent a little bit of time looking at the hands, remodeled the hands, compared them to other hands from different games. And we actually were able to not only make them look better, but make them light better. They cost less polys. So John has the unenviable job of going through and just putting the new hands on all the current nude characters. Then we have to make the gloves for all the different armors as well. So there's a lot of kind of menial work, and I appreciate John's patience working through all these things. And then we have to do a little bit of rigging. We noticed that once we put them in some of the idols, because we've moved a lot of the geometry around, then the hands kind of deformed in kind of a monkey paw kind of thing going on while the character was sitting there. So there's a little bit of work there. And this is like, I actually said this earlier, where we're starting to look at all these different things. We're starting to see how the animations play on the characters, things we hadn't seen before. I was just saying to Scott, like, we're going to have to put some more verts on the back of the character here, because when he does his pierce animation, he's yanking geometry from the back of the character, and it looks terrible. So there's a lot of these little learned lessons that we're going to keep working on. So John's been updating the hands, and then he's kind of got a background process that he's working on, which is not only teaching ourselves how to do better hair, but teaching ourselves how to do better hair. So John is setting up new hair for the characters, and this isn't more an issue of like more hairstyles. This is just doing a better job of our hair. Right now it's going to be modeling and texturing, and then later on we'll probably look at materials for hair and get more of a anisotropic shader on hair. That's not a guaranteed thing. It's just something we'd like to do at a later point in time. But it'll really kind of help if we have a nice model and textures to work from. My work in progress for environment. Last Saturday I was at home trying to get some work in on this new deeper, darker forest, and it's truly the most excited I've been about one of the environments because I think it's just really cool. Working on that, got sick, spent 3 days trying to make sure I didn't get anybody else sick, working from home. It's been a slow grind for me, but I've been able to get a whole bunch of pieces in, and the whole goal here is that all of these pieces can basically be kind of kit bashing to build all the trees, and then we can use them for other biomes. The screenshots we sent out 2 weeks ago, I think included just some like rough size of the trees, and it's interesting because they worked really well. It was very bright, it looked kind of happy and cheery, so it kind of informed us that, oh, these will work for something like that as well with some audits. We don't want them to be one for one, and then we'll take them into this deeper, darker forest, which I'm totally excited about. Updated animation assets. So Scott has this spreadsheet. It's the master animation spreadsheet, which he's very excited about, and has totally streamlined his ability to put animations in very quickly, edit animations, edit frame counts, edit frame breakups on the different clips. He's entered over 1,000 lines of just animation data into this spreadsheet. Has spent the whole week working with Andrew, either editing that sheet or giving him little one-off changes to existing animations. Currently, he's working on a full body animation as a test. Most of our animations are done with independent bottom and top so that the character can run around like crazy. And then with Andrew's change, now he can move his hands independently while he's, I don't know what I'm making here, but it's amazing while he's running around. So Scott we were kind of looking at some other animations from different games and some stuff we found on YouTube that Scott was showing us, and he's trying out a full body animation to see what they're going to experiment with there.
There was also like our old build server. When it would build an animation, it would just be like, "Yo, dog, your animation broke. Figured out." And with the new stuff like the sheets, when Scott puts an animation in there, it'll say like exactly which clip was problem, and I think it'll give information about what was wrong with the clip, and it tells if it's bad data entry versus a bad asset that's in there, and so the feedback for Scott has also helped him iterate on this stuff much better and much more intelligently than we could before.
Yeah, and thank you, Andrew, who's maybe watching. All right, sound. So one of the things that we've been working on as DB is starting to see a lot of the animations, whether they're experimental, whether on the stream or something, and starts getting more ideas. He's added in, I think he added like a whole bunch of 70 different Foley assets for different types of armor movements, whether it be light, leather, chain, clinking, clacking, grinding movements. And along with that, at the end of last week, he put in the beginnings of some ambient soundtracks. And the soundtrack is probably not the best way to put it. When you're running around the game right now, you hear like these little ambient tracks that play randomly, like sound of wind and birds and things like that. And every once in a while, these little very subtle kind of ambient music clips will kind of come in, and I love them personally. Let's see, and so he's continuing to work on some of the ambient SFX.
Skip pop.
I skipped pop. Place of Power. So Dion is a bit crazy. If you guys missed the newsletter, which we sent out last week, or beginning of this week, when did we send it out?
The newsletter?
Tuesday?
Yeah.
Dion wrote up an article about the Place of Power progress, and I made sure I grabbed a real quick screenshot of what Ben actually handed us, which was like a big flat plane, bunch of squares, and so you can actually see like it go from concept and slowly into a model. So right now, last week she was pretty much wrapping up like a rough pass of just all the modeling. This week she's done a rough pass of materials, and this I'm going to have her take some screenshots and we'll put them in the update today. And then the next stage is to stick this in the game and just start auditing from there, start putting lights, glows, VFX, get crystals to look like crystals, rock to look like rock, and then kind of balance it all out as we go. So that's just coming along as expected. We kind of covered the design one that I already.
Well, the other part of that is Christina spinning up on the crafting system so that we can start moving from sort of very specific items that we start to play around with now to the full vision that Mark has created for crafting. And so Christina's getting spun up with that. And some of the refactoring we've done has been A, to improve where we're at now, but also B, to facilitate where we're going with the design. And what we've got here is Ben's been updating the armor and weapons to reflect some of the changes that we've made there, which is also more componentized and more modular than it was before to again make it easier to iterate on and to move closer towards beta and launch. And a big buzzword around the office, like real big, a big focus in the last couple of weeks has been improving our ability to iterate on things, especially where it relates to our ability system and our gameplay systems, such that it is much less painful, much faster, more responsive for Ben to be able to go in, make a change to an ability or an item or a system or whatever, see it on the server, try it out, get a feel for it, and just as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that sums up some of the things we've been saying over the last couple of months, which is just making something we can be proud of, making something that we can iterate on faster, something that we can actually get players in and just make changes quickly and just keep adding content. And the buzzword I was going to add on to that is gameplay. That's just get the whole thing put together, get a game put together. The last thing on here, thank you Apollon and Tenzante. The two of them have been basically working on our German translations and are just absolute beasts in translating everything. So with their help, we've been able to get the German website updated to the new version that we've got. I didn't want to push that last minute today. We'll probably push that next week as long as we don't have any bugs or anything. So thanks guys very much. It honestly makes my job pretty amazing when I've got people who are so excited about the game that they want to jump on and just translate piles of Max's writing, which I know must be really difficult.
Yeah, well, we just completed the Great Depths Read story.
Okay, yeah, so there's more for you to do. You can thank Max. So that actually wraps up our top 13. One thing I want to do is I've got a gift that showed up earlier this week from Shimsham, and I'll read you guys this quick letter. Hey there, CSE. I picked you guys and gals up a little something during a recent trip to Ireland. At the bottom of the Hill of Tara, there's a quaint little bookstore run by Michael Slavin. He's a longtime resident of the area and author of the Book of Tara. It's a great little book full of Irish folklore and history surrounding the Hill of Tara. I hope you enjoyed. This is also pretty cool. During this trip, I traveled around to many Neolithic sites: Tara, Newgrange, Noath, Dunbeg Fort, the beehive huts of Cathair. I'm going to just tear this all apart, of something, and many other. I mean, really, look at that. That's not a word. That's like we're in Middle Earth. Yeah, and many others. And I made sure to visit the National Museum of Ireland Archaeology building. Photos were allowed in the general exhibit area. It's nothing you couldn't find online, but I've thrown some photos on a thumb drive for you. Thank you. Mainly it's landscape and stonework. Yes. The environment artist is like, yay, rocks. But maybe something in there will give you guys a little artistic inspiration. They're all straight out of the camera. Thanks again for all your work on the game. I'm looking forward to seeing everything in action. Now get back to work. Well said.
Thought I was going to have some quality time with that thumb drive.
Yeah, this thumb drive, we're going to have a little bit of time together. So here's the Book of Tara. And this is what a thumb drive looks like. This is what a thumb drive looks like, for those of you.
Very cool.
So thank you very much. These kind of things are really appreciated, especially when I can't get myself out to Ireland to go take pictures of myself. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of Q&A. I'd like to keep this short, focus on some of the tech, some of the art, and we'll do a few questions, and we'll probably wrap up in like 15 minutes.
Or if you're real big into like project management and production stuff, you can ask Tyler that too.
Oh, I don't think that's that interesting for them.
Well, I guess we'll play the Q&A
What?
intro.
Bueller?
Who are you? Turn the stove off. Did I hear a thud?
Do you like my shirt?
When are this?
Is this my spleen?
Now it is time to answer some questions.
But Max was saying people will try and sneak in a bunch of design questions. And I said, yeah, I would too. I mean, the reality is you get really excited about a game, and then it turns into, okay, you guys have been working really hard on A, and now we've got it.
How do you feel about C++ as it relates to whether or not stealthers are OP or not?
Yeah, I mean, I actually really can appreciate the enthusiasm when the questions just go all over the place, and we may not even be focused on something, and someone will be asking us about, camera mechanics in the depths, or how we're going to transport goods back and forth across roads, and here we are just churning through completely different content right now.
All right. And in that spirit, Thantanos, if you could pare that down to just one tech question, I will ask it. Let's see.
Actually, this would
Epoch.
there's a couple questions about biomes here. Sorry, I'm doing this very differently than you're used to.
Oh, you're going to read them off on there.
Well, I just
Go
Jerk
for it.
face.
Yeah, jerk face. So one of the things I want to do is, I think it was the last stream or one of the streams I did, someone was asking, like, will there be surprises when it comes to environment art? And that's kind of a hard, in one way it's easy answer because people have paid for access to see all this stuff. I'm not hiding something, there's nothing in my back pocket. I would like there to be, but that would assume there's a copious amounts of time to get through all this work. Right now, the question by Cortesia was being asked, what's after the next one? Which is hilarious because I was just saying I'm trying to work really hard on this thing, and people are already over here on what's the next thing. Right now, I think it's going to be a balance of trying to add new content as well as clean up old content. For all of us putting all this together, being a small team, we're all bouncing around a little bit. So even for art, there's things that drive me nuts. I'd like to fix the pine trees, the way they're lighting. I've got different grass cards I want to clean up, textures I want to clean up. There's all this little bit of balancing stuff, especially as we learn more. So the deeper, darker biome will be one of the things I really want to hit and add that in, and then probably take a step back and just kind of do some general cleaning all over the place. The other thing we'll probably do, since we went to this 32K map, my biggest concern right away was there's only so many different environment variations that we have currently. So probably what we'll try and do is make some smaller variations and things, so that like over there's kind of a swamp, over there's some really cool statues, over there we did something totally different with the pine assets. That will probably be the next focus, to make the best use out of what we've got, so you don't feel like it's as repetitive on such a large scale.
So our terrain editing system, I don't want to go too far into it, but you sort of set up these regions, and you can say, like, take this big triangle, and everything in this triangle does these three things, and then go inside one of the smaller triangles inside that big triangle and say this smaller triangle also does this other thing, and it's this very additive sort of layered process. Have you tried just taking like two biomes and just smushing them together? And
well, that's exactly what we're talking about here, is just kind of mixing things, or maybe just taking a lot of terrain protrusions and height changes and doing something different in one area. And I think that's going to be the main goal once we kind of just set out an island and say, okay, here's where you've got all your plots, and you're going to start running around on this big area. What can we do slightly differently so that it doesn't feel repetitive? I think that'll be my next goal after getting through a lot of the next biome.
There's also recently been some talk about potentially starting to revisit per realm stuff. So we might start looking at some of that stuff again soon.
Yeah, and the per realm stuff just adds lots of art onto it. So there's some things that we haven't looked at in a while. There's some tech around that we need to revisit and see where we're going to go with that in the near term. So that's a little in the air, but just the concept of having the per realm variations of stuff adds an extra level of complexity to things that I just kind of want to, if we're going to put our best foot forward, I really want to take a moment to just look at everything and make small tweaks and just get the best out of what we've got before I, spread out too thin. Okay.
Should I read one off?
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
Okay. Torkal asks, as a producer and as an artist, how do you manage your time between your different tasks?
Producer comes first. That's the reality of it, making sure that everybody else needs to be able to work. That's my first priority. Making sure that we're not hitting any roadblocks, that everybody has what they need. That always comes first, and then I get whatever time I have left. It's usually why I'll try and do a little bit of work on the weekends when it's quiet. Plus, like right now I'm talking with Tion about the place of power. That eats up a little bit of time, but it's all producer responsibilities first. The team needs to succeed. I would much rather have us, with a nice strong combat system, get the game together, and you guys have less environment art, because that can always come after. Right now, the really important thing is putting the game together and getting everybody working, happy, fed. Donuts. I see Dion over there eating a donut. Oh, she's got an orange. She's going healthy.
Heltek asks.
I don't think that's how it works. You can do both.
So, with Tyler's experience on the environment side of things and Tim's experience on the code side, how much more needs to be added to the game for Veilstorms to start warping landscapes?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, we haven't started on Veilstorms. We haven't done any tech around Veilstorms. It's a lot of more design area for that right now. Not a beta thing.
Yeah, and in terms
Or
of
beta 1 thing, sorry.
the tech for terrain, I know the high system, but I don't know the nitty-gritty details, so I couldn't give you a fair answer to that.
Yeah, just if you want to check up on the things that we're committed to for Beta 1, it's under the user stories on the website. It's the Beta 1 primary list. There's an extended list of things we've been able to achieve in addition, partially because of all the hiring we've done.
Adri Cortesia asks, for Tyler, what will be the next big art thing after the Deep Dark Forest?
That's the one I answered. That was the first one I did.
Oh, sorry. Let's see. How about... Try to ask your questions for these two guys focused on art and tech. They're not the two who can really answer design questions. Lontween, was that red eye in the picture of Christina in the newsletter intentional, or is that her natural eye color?
I actually saw that too, and I thought it was contacts.
Yeah, they were contacts, Lontween. She was wearing a costume, as it says in the newsletter. She's dressed up as a character. Demon programmer.
This is an interesting question, which I'm only going to answer just because it's fun to talk about the tech. Lotween asks, will a biome's art be rendered on an entire map when new islands are created? The really cool thing about our tech is once we actually set up all the values, if you guys have seen any of the older streams I've done where I'll set up the mod, that's kind of the less visually interesting part where you're just kind of putting this chain of, what do we call those little visual?
Bot butters? Or are you talking about like the handles or whatever?
Yeah, we hook up, it's a visual hookup of nodes.
Node graph?
Node graph, setting up the mod and what it does. Once all that's set up, you kind of just hit save, and then you can assign that to the entire landmass. So we can literally, in reasonable amount of time, 20 minutes, make a big island and just attach an entire mod to it. Now, granted, it's going to do the whole mod all over it, but suddenly there's an island with a whole bunch of stuff going on it. We still want to do some massaging and everything on it. That's the reason why we're doing some extra tools. But the cool thing is it's almost instantaneous once I hit save.
Right, and also specifically about the rendering, like I talked about how we have like big triangles that have smaller triangles inside of them, that have smaller triangles inside of them. We do some LOD stuff so that like stuff right around your player in the world gets those most specific, most detailed triangles, and then way further out we do like sort of coarse, bigger, lower LOD triangles to save your CPU and GPU.
Epic Plays asks, how do you feel about the first pass animations, and how close do you think you are to a good starting point for actual gameplay?
Man, honestly, it's a little hard to tell. The whole point is right now that we did a whole bunch of work while we rebuilt the animation system on new animations, and there's this gray area where there's some magic that happens where you take the asset, you go, okay, that asset looks great when I run it in Max or I run it in Maya, and then I stick it in the game, and then the code actually has to play nice with it, and then you've got this really, logically beautiful area that Andrew works on where you're doing a bit of math magic to blend from animation to animation. and so it's a little early to kind of say what that is. I have confidence in what we've done. I have confidence in the people that are working on it, but we are all perfectionists and assholes to each other at times and really want to push things. So one of the things we've been reiterating is that we are putting all this back together. We're going to be seeing animations that we hadn't seen before, and a lot of this, the timing may feel weird. There's this weird fun concept that's kind of hard to capture sometimes, and it may deal with how many frames, literally how many frames we're spending as you hit the character, another guy, and when you come back from it. There's a lot of these little nuances, so you guys are going to be on a little bit of a journey with us as we kind of put this all together and see how it feels. And like I said, I noticed today that as my guy stretched forward with a piercing animation, it yanked the mesh, and that's going to throw some people off, where they're going to tell us that the animation doesn't look right. So I'm confident in what we're doing, but I can't answer the question yet because we just need to actually get into it. We're currently putting it together. We're starting to get swings. We're hooking it up to abilities. The combat system's fairly robust, so there's a lot of little nuances that need to be added in just from a technical standpoint, and then we're going to start getting into some of the artistic feel of it. And we are going to need lots of feedback around this. So if you guys, as when we say like, hey, we just need you guys to come in and tell us, what technical bugs are occurring and how you feel about it, please jump in.
But one of the things that's been cool having Andrew working on the animation system is like a lot of times at its core, like animation is basically just doing math on your bones, doing transforms and orientation of bones and stuff like that, and pretty much anybody with a basic math background, basic understanding of how that math works can make the code happen. But there's the way it sort of all gets glued together, the way it all gets assembled, that you need an eye for this looks good, and despite not being an artist, Andrew has a lot of that eye, and so he can go, okay, Scott, if you go and make this small change to this animation, I can hook it up in this way, and it comes together to make a whole package. And so it's been really, really fantastic watching him have an opportunity to apply a bunch of different sort of his skills and abilities to that to come out with a system that is better than the sum of its parts, and those parts are good to begin with.
Yeah, and the whole goal here is you get people that are passionate about what they like, and you get them to throw that into their work. And this is something we're going to be working on for a while. I guarantee you that we are going to keep iterating and working on this. This isn't just like a one-hit wonder. We're not going to spend 2 months on it and just be like, okay, we're done. This is going to be a constant iteration thing. We're going to be looking for feedback. We're going to be looking for little tweaks. And as we make changes to the design, I'm sure the animation will be impacted, and it'll keep evolving.
Well, even in the last week, we've seen stuff like when we very first landed the animation system. I think a lot of it was using like spear animations. And I had a Viking with like a big two-handed axe equipped, and he did this spear animation where he took his two-handed axe and sort of hefted it up over his shoulder and stabbed the guy with like the two front blades of the axe.
Because you had the axe equipped, but it was playing a spear animation.
And it looked really, really cool. But then once we got it hooked up to some of the stuff I mentioned originally, that we're working on getting the timing and stuff like that just right. Once we got it hooked up to the right timing, it played super fast and wasn't quite as cool. And so we iterate on them, and pare back some of the frames, make it a little bit more brief so that it syncs up with Scott's animation vision and Ben's design vision, and works with all of the tech. And then there's all of this glue that happens, and so it's been fun watching all that happen.
Yeah,
cool. Well, Vesser1 asks, what is Tim currently working on, and is he allowed to tell us a bit about it?
In much the way that Tyler said, he spends a lot of time doing producery things to make the team more efficient. More recently, I have been spending a lot of my time doing sort of tech support kind of things to make the engineering team more efficient. So I've been doing lots and lots of things that you will probably, hopefully, never need to know that I did.
What are you working on? Can you pick one thing?
There's a bunch of stuff where I'm taking care of subdividing some of our databases so that, the amount of logs we generate in one place don't conflict with volume sizes. I fixed a smattering of bugs related to somebody found that if you spammed abilities, a very certain circumstance would cause your client to crash. So I put a Band-Aid on for that so it wouldn't crash it, and then got more time this week to fix it. I've been working with Rob on getting buildings and a test up and going today. I do a lot of triage, so when we have a big test, I'll go on the forums and process everything you guys do, and Brittany and I will go through and figure out which of them we need to fix right now, which of them can wait for engineers to have bandwidth once they finish whatever system they're on. So I'm sort of all over the place helping out and writing code in betwixt.
Yeah, I mean, visually, I always think of this as like some people are working on this big giant puzzle piece, and those two giant puzzle pieces fit together, and someone's filling in the cracks, you know, just getting those little pieces done. And sometimes they're very big, important pieces.
Alvaro asks, Tyler, will we have a cool forest filled with boxing willows?
No.
Okay.
I don't know what a boxing willow is, so I can definitely tell you there's no boxing willows.
What kind of environmental artist are you?
However, if you want to message me on our forums, I would love to know what a boxing willow is, and it may inspire some future ideas. That's totally fine if you want to send me some pictures, because it might just jog us into something new later.
All right. Feral Lol asks, how much VRAM do you need on your graphics card for the recent tests? Would, say, 4 gigabytes be a bottleneck? And if so, is this going to improve when you work more on LOD or texture compression?
I believe my card at home on my laptop that I play from home on has 3 gigs.
Yeah, I was playing on a 3.
So I do know so in some ways we are pushing close to some of those limits, but we also haven't done a lot of optimization in terms of dialing back and some LOD things we can do to conserve VRAM. So I wouldn't be too concerned specifically about that number right now.
Helzek asks, this is an opinion question. When Beta 1 launches, what would be the stretch goal you wish could be next, no matter how ridiculous or unrealistic?
Well, let's go from my personal perspective.
I think that's what Helzek is asking.
Okay. Well, I mean,
Thank you,
I was
Jake.
thinking of from the team or something, or as a goal for Beta 1.
No, you're talking about your hope, your number one wish.
Shit, mine is just
Pie in the sky.
time. You know, honestly, we've got a lot of people with a lot of passion and a lot of capability and a lot of intelligence, and sometimes it's those little things where you just want a little bit of extra time. From a couple of projects ago, I learned that it's always good to have the artists in particular keep a list of things that they want to do, so that they can kind of feel like that's being heard, because sometimes it's not as important that this little branch is fixed, it's more important that there's a forest of trees, but it may be something that's very personally important to the artist. So usually what I try and do is have everybody keep a list of things. So for me, I have a list of things I would like to do. Mainly right now, I think once we get into that point, it will probably be a more variety type of thing. You know, whether it be just more subtleties to grass or more subtleties to trees, instead of having one type of pine, mixed types of pines, or having time to set up different biomes. And I think we'll achieve some of that as we lead into beta, and there'll be some 11th hour like, I added a tree, it's different, and now it looks all different. I think there'll be a lot of those little things, so I think once we get into it, I'll just be working on like, make that better, tweak that. And that is very much what's going to happen. I said this a little while ago, that we spent a lot of time doing a lot of smaller things. Now we're into the big meat and potatoes of these systems, and we're starting to put them together. And as they come together, we're going to start hitting a bunch of small things again. So as we lead into beta, it'll be just lots of cleanup and optimizing and making everything play nice. And in the case of art, making everything look just a little bit better.
Pie in the sky, naval combat.
Naval combat.
Outside of that, like in terms of like Tyler's wish for time, like I would really love to just have like an infinite amount of time to spend working on like the interaction system and the veil. Like those are two things, like from both a tech and design and like playing the game standpoint, that I'm most excited for. But having infinite time for those would also be awesome.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, we're not trying to say time is what we want. It's those specific things we would use the time for.
Do you guys want to answer a few more, or?
Finish two more, it's already 5.
2 more, all right. Fried Nachos asks,
Fried nachos.
what sort of benefits is physically based rendering providing you?
Oh, that's easy. I mean, crap. Go look at the website. We updated the galleries. Look at the early alpha section and the current alpha section. The screenshots are night and day. The main thing is it allows us to get. In some regards, you could say it allows us to get more realistic materials, but that's not necessarily as important depending on how realistic we want to go with some materials. The one thing it really lets us do is differentiate things further. So when you're a long time ago when we make games, you just look at a diffuse texture, the colors of it, and you'd be like, there's a rock. Then we started getting spec maps in them, and you'd see little motes of light, where when the light hit, you could be like, oh, there's little bits of metal in the rock. Then we added normals, and it was like, okay, little details there and big details there. And then we added the rough and spec breakup, which further allowed you to say, this is leather, it feels like leather, and it's next to metal, and it feels like metal, and it really it just visually helps you differentiate and bring more life to the scene.
I also really like the interplay. You said night and day, but I really like the interplay between night and day, and it lets us have more interesting times of day in the way that we light and shade the world.
Yeah, that actually goes more into the HDR and the ambient lighting, but that might as well say that as well, because that gave us a lot of extra visual changes that we were able to make use of.
Torcall asks, if your producer tasks are prioritized, is work on biomes not set aside, or someone else manages that during your other occupation? Or are you the only one to manage the flora and fauna side of the game?
Oh no, it's very much a group effort. While I'm not working on things, a lot of times I have other people work on stuff. I'll be sitting there okay, John, I don't have time to get to something. Can you help me out? So last week he worked on a bunch of kind of pained humanoid forms that I wanted to kind of mix into the trees. So he'll kind of prep pieces for me. Dion has been working on the Place of Power, and so I just check in with her regularly on that. Michelle's always working on concepts. She's the deeper, darker forest sometimes just turns into very much something in my head. So I'll sit with Michelle and we'll talk about it and we'll figure out further how it would fit into her vision of things. And she does a great job of keeping her scope extremely wide on how all the realms are going to look, while I might just have a very focused idea of how things are going to work. So sometimes when I don't get time to actually lay down work on the say the forest in this case, there's other people actually working on stuff to make it easier, so that when I do get the time I can go a little bit faster.
Well, and Tyler also really does like working on environments and making these forests and stuff like that, so sometimes he'll just make time on his own time.
Oh yeah. I mean, like I said, last Saturday, right before I got sick, my wife had the whole day cleared for me. She was going to go out, do something with Zoe, I can't remember what it was, and she was like, you've got the whole day to get some work done, and I sat down and then got sick.
All right, one bonus fun question. Odelvik asks, please fill in the blank. Trees are to Tyler as blank is to Tim.
That's a good question. It's got to keep it clean.
He's turning red with the difficulty of
The funny part is
keeping it
the
clean.
tree joke is funny. I told Brittany whenever she needs me to go away just to tell me to go make a tree, because I'll have fun. What do you like to do? What's your friendly nemesis?
Oh, in terms of stuff I've done here, the initial setup for the items, I really enjoyed. That was super fun. Though it wasn't something as you're going to have trees to work on the entire lifespan of the project. I'm just not sure that that's a thing that the engineering discipline for this game, and it enables one person to work on one thing through the entire lifespan of the project. Items were super cool to work on. The chat server I had a ton of fun with.
A little bit of my outside perspective, hearing Tim chortling at the other end of the office a lot. I like listening to him work on gameplay things. He gets a sudden enthusiasm around gameplay aspects. There's very much if Mark and Ben start talking about design, Tim just slowly hovers over and he's suddenly there. I'd have to say gameplay is kind of your thing.
Which was funny because I went through a phase about a year ago where I didn't really want to have anything to do with it. Mostly because I also spent some time working on the proxies.
Yeah, you want to do server stuff.
And I was like, hey, server stuff is really fun. I want to do this, screw that gameplay stuff. But yeah, as Tyler says, we'll have discussion, gameplay design kind of discussions between Mark and Ben, and I inevitably end up gravitating over towards those. So
Yeah, and this is where it's a strength that, I mean, Tim probably plays twice as many games as I do. I tend to start playing a game, get interested in the art, and then start making art. Sometimes I never got out of the starting area on Final Fantasy 14. Like, I just kept looking at things and just wandering around the world. So yeah, Tim's got a good background in just playing a lot of different games, so he just slowly merges into conversations.
and it slowly merges back out.
But the good thing is, he would get kicked out if he was not, helping the conversation. So Tim also does a good job, sometimes just playing devil's advocate. Like, well, this game and that game, and we could do this and that. And so it's not always a vacuum.
All right. Well, thanks for watching.
Like this.
Thank you all. I'm gonna go work on the update. We'll go see where testing lays out, and we'll let you know if you receive an email. We'll have some testing up. If we don't put an email out, I'll just make a note in the update for the week. That's it.
See you later.